I'm going to read this call to order for our specially held meeting. Due to health and safety concerns related to the COVID-19 coronavirus, this meeting will be conducted by video conference or telephone call. At least a quorum of the board will be participating by video conference or telephone call in accordance with the provisions of Section 551.125 or 551.127 of the Texas Government Code that have not been suspended by order of the governor. In accordance with those suspended rules, we certify that all other meeting procedures will adhere to board adopted procedures to the extent practical. At this time, we will call the roll of the trustees in order to verify the virtual participation of each board member. Trustees, when your name is called, please acknowledge your participation in the meeting by stating present or here. Ms. Haynes, District 1.
Here.
Trina Stafford, District 2. Trina. She's here. Trina. Ew. Well, we lost Trina. I bet she'll be back in a minute. Oh, no. Hang on. Trina? I'm not hearing Trina, but I'm seeing Trina. Trina, can you hear us? Heard her a minute ago. All right, I'm going to continue, and Trina, speak up when you come back on. Tish Woodruff, District 4. Here. Alicia Cruz, District 6. Here. Roger Livingston, District 7.
Here.
All right. Last call, Trina. All right. I'm going to assume she's going to come back on. Well, there she is. Okay. We can't hear you, but I can see you. So wave frantically if you have something to say. Let me continue. It has been established that although members of the board are not gathered in a physical location, we do have a quorum in attendance at this meeting by video conference or telephone call. This meeting has been duly called, and notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with law. As such, I hereby call the meeting of the Greenville Independent School District Board of Trustees to order. All right. Members of the public who desire to make comments related to this meeting or asked in the meeting notice to email their comments to comments@greenvilleisd.com by 5:30. Do we have any comments to hear?
No, we do not.
All right. At this time, we have no comments, so we will move on to the next item. Dr. Liggins? Where you go?
I'm here.
Would you lead us in the invocation, please?
Absolutely. Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to come together this evening. We pray that you be with us and our families and protect us as we go about doing the district's business. I ask for a special prayer for Karen Cummings, who is in treatment right now with her family at the loss of her mother. Father, we ask that you be with her and her family during this time of suffering. Father, we lift you up. We ask that tonight the decisions be made in the interest of the students, staff, and community of Greenville ISD. We thank you in advance for what you're going to do and what you have done. In Jesus' name we pray all things. Amen.
Amen. And now the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. So we have determined we do not have any public comments, so we will move on to item 3, which is comments from individual board members. Anybody have anything to say? Go through pictures here. Uh-oh. All right, hearing nothing, we will move on. We are going to consider and take possible action regarding the resignation of GISD Board of Trustees John Kelso. Let's see here. I have the agenda up. Let's see here.
It's a recommendation of the administration that the board accepts the resignation of Mr. John Kelso.
So I
move that we accept Mr. Kelso's resignation.
Can I have a motion from Ann and a second from Aletha? Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I'm going to ask for any opposed to be verbal so I can hear it. Any opposed? Okay. That would be unanimous by all present to accept that resignation, although we hate to. Next item, I guess before I move on, I just want to thank John for his service and express our appreciation for all that he's done during his time on the board. He will be missed. I don't think he will stay away. I think we will see him soon. But we'll see. All right. So moving on, we're going to go to number 5. Consider and take possible action regarding the appointment to fill the board seat vacated by John Kelso. Dr. Liggins?
It is recommended that the trustees appoint Mike Rackley, a Greenville ISD citizen that resides in District 5, to replace John Kelso as a member of the board.
Okay. He showed up, so I think he's willing. So, again, I need a motion to accept that appointment. I think I heard Ann made the motion.
I'll second.
And Roger seconded. Any discussion? No. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, I believe that was unanimous. Welcome aboard, Mr.
Thank you all. Thank you all. It's kind of like a deja vu to me here.
I bet it is. Some things have changed a lot.
Quite a bit, yes.
Some things have not changed at all. Okay, so next is the oath of office for District 5, which I believe.
Yes, that is Ms. Phillips should be entering the room now to conduct that oath.
Mike, I need to get out of the way. Yes. Hang on. Here, it's on my camera. Here we go. I can see it. It's on my camera. All right. Again, welcome aboard and thank you for your willingness to serve. Again. Okay, so moving on to item 7, reports and discussion items. Dr. Liggins?
Yes. First, I would like to go over my superintendent's report. So, back to school 21, we will have quite a large discussion on this afterwards, but we're currently have registration underway. As of today, we have a little less than half of our students have signed up. We're a little over 2,000 students that have signed up, and we're currently at a choice of 69% choosing at home. 69% choosing in person and 31% choosing at home. We'll discuss a little later how that may change drastically after our discussion. We also have, we were featured in the TASB magazine. We're one of 15 school districts, and it was a great article. It was actually written a few months ago, I think during late spring semester, and but that was published and really highlighted one of our principals and her kid, who's also a student at Carver, as well as a couple of another parent group and a student as well. So that was exciting for us. And we also had a great, our valedictorian and our salutatorian, Wyatt Spivey and Annabelle Tolinda, respectively, shared their thoughts with the Herald Banner and experiences. There was on a podcast. And so that was very interesting that they had the opportunity to do that, being the class of 2020 that's the COVID-19 class. So hopefully they will be the only class, but we'll wait and see if it continues, but that was really good. If you've driven by Greenville High School, we have quite a few folks on the roof every single day working. They come in before daybreak to try to get as much done before it gets intolerable up there. But they're doing a great job. They're making good progress, and we've only been delayed a couple of days due to weather early on, but we're right on track, and they're doing a really good job. So we're very pleased with what they're doing. And also, just a special thank you to our partners with IFI, who have donated us 500 reusable shields that we're going to pass out to all of our teachers to be able to use, so that should they choose, their students can see their faces. In fact, TE is recommending face shields over face masks, not only due to the fact that you can see faces, but supposedly it's a little bit more protection than a mask itself. So that's my overall report. Now what I wanted to do, I'm moving right in, if you don't mind, to the next agenda item, which is a board discussion. So I will start speaking, but this is really a discussion for you all. Thank you. For you all to advise me, share your thoughts, feelings about the whole situation. But I wanted to first share, at your request, how the board can help support our school district during the COVID-19. So, and I've just gone through and put a few bullet points that I would like to discuss with you in general. First, I think the best way you can do that is, well, first, let me begin by saying, let me back up and say, we are literally working, myself and the team, working 7 days a week in order to create the best environment that we can in order to make sure that our students and staff return to a safe environment where they are prepared to learn and to be safe and to thrive as students and educators. So we are doing quite a bit on our end. That's what you pay us for. That's what we're doing. So we're doing all of the heavy lifting to make sure that we have plans in place that are hopefully going to work out towards a good end result. But what you can do as a board is, if you would ensure that you're well informed, we release we've released a huge document of how school is going to function as of date. That thing took a lot of time and effort put into it to think of every possible scenario. So as you are asking the community what's going on with the schools, what are we doing about this, I think it would behoove you to read that and be somewhat knowledgeable of it so you can answer questions as people approach you about it. I'm also asking for your patience and your flexibility. Things will change. The moment, and I've told the staff over and over, we're going to make some beautiful plans that will have thought of everything that we think possibly could go wrong, all of the what ifs, and one thing can change and the whole plan is thrown out and we're starting all over again. And that very well may happen more than once. And so just really asking that you understand as the Board of Trustees to be flexible. Some decisions will be your decisions that change things. Some will be our local health department, and some will be the TEA. And so that will, I'm just asking for patience, flexibility as we go through this. The next one is be supportive of decisions. This is a tough time with a lot of tough decisions that will be in place. The board may have to make some decisions that obviously everyone doesn't necessarily feel that's rules. You may often make a decision I don't necessarily agree with, but at the end of the day, we're a team of 8. If the majority rules, then the decision is made. It's now become how we're moving forward as a district. So I think it's important that we all remember to toe the company line, so to speak. And if it's a decision that's made by the board, even if it wasn't necessarily something you voted for or against, it's if we're implementing it, we'll need your support in ensuring that understand it's the direction that we're going. And also be proactive. If you have suggestions, share them. This is new to all of us, and so it's nothing that there's no experts when it comes to how do we respond to certain situations. I've been communicating more than I ever have with other districts and brainstorming and trying to figure out what other folks are doing. They're wanting to know what we're doing. And if we could just simply, if you know of folks in other districts or whatever the case may be, and you hear about the great idea, share it. We absolutely want to make sure that we're doing to have the best place. Moving on, Shannon. Be willing to listen, share resources, and let us know what's missing. Along the lines of all of the information we shared, you guys are leaders in this community. People look to you and value your opinions. And so when they come to you, if you can make sure that if there's something there that we haven't answered, that we haven't thought of, if you can simply, let me know that so we can try to address it. We've been trying to be as very active as we can with answering questions on social media, putting out FAQs, updating them as much as possible. But quite often, if they don't come to us and they come to you, we're just simply asking that you will, if you don't mind, making sure that you relay that message back to me and let me know that this is something that we need to address because we are a citizen. And also be active advocates for our teachers, our students, and our families. This is teachers will especially be going through a lot of new learning, and much of what the teachers will be doing, not only will they be learning new things, they'll be unlearning a lot of old things that they're expected to unlearn temporarily as we go through a COVID crisis, and then make sure they implement them moving forward during normal times. And so just understand that will occur. There will be instances where things won't work out as we thought they would. Teachers are trying to figure things out. And our mission, although, is to educate kids, our priority is to make sure that we keep them safe. Some decisions that sometimes safety will take priority over quality of instruction. We're hoping not to have that huge compromise often. But just as we're doing now, we're allowing kids to learn at home, which we've never done before, but that is to make folks feel safe and continue to be safe depending on the personal situations. So that will definitely be deal as we go throughout the district, go throughout the school year. Finally, if you can just remember our why and keep that in front of mind. First and foremost, and this is just a graphic of, as you guys know, we talked, I think it was last month, about the COVID slide. That lower line on that graph there are kids that look like the kids do in Greenville, Texas. And so, we know that our students have some huge gaps due to being out of school so long, due to the transition period. We also see on the far left of the screen that we have our cases are on the rise. We haven't plateaued. So we also have to take that into consideration as we're considering our why. And we have hundreds of staff members that are coming in and will be coming in every single day to support our students, and thousands of students that will be learning from GISD on a daily basis when we move forward. So just remember that when every decision we're making and that we're bringing to you to make on our behalf when required, that it has everything to do with this situation and this data that we're looking at here. That being said, I wanted to also take an opportunity to let you guys know of the latest changes as of today. Actually, this afternoon I had another meeting with the commissioner, and we anticipate that that we will probably, as early as tomorrow, depending on the discussion we're having, have a few more changes. The state has now introduced a hybrid model option, or a blended, so to speak. Hybrid blend is used interchangeably. Where basically now parents have two choices. It's either 100% at home or 100% in person. We are now looking at possibly offering those two options, as well as a third option of hybrid, which would possibly be an AD day. The kicker with the hybrid is hybrid will be a third option should we implement it pre-K through 8th grade. A hybrid would take the place at the high school level of the 100% in person. So the high school level would change their schedule to 100% at home or hybrid. The main thing that this does is this allows less kids to be in school on any given day, and allows for social distancing. It allows for, at the high school, for example, instead of having approximately 1,400 kids in the school at one time, it will have approximately 700 on any given day. That will allow classroom sizes to be about half, the hallways to be about halfway full. So, and then it would, being a third option, if it was implemented pre-K through 8, it would also hopefully provide for that. At this point, with the 69% of our folks choosing 100% in person and the 31 choosing 100%, 31% choosing 100% at home, we don't know when this is implemented how those numbers will change. If it will impact more so the folks that chose to come to school every day, or will it impact the folks that decided to stay home every single day. But that is another huge option that we are able to implement now. Also, when speaking with the principals, we discussed the option of possibly delaying school and changing our calendar to delay school until after Labor Day, just due to several factors. One of the factors is principals, and the principals 100% were in favor of this. It gives us more time to train our teachers to have a quality product when we start school. So it gives them a little bit more. It would give them a little bit more time in order to have training before school starts. It would also give, because we've backed up quite a bit in getting our buildings thoroughly cleaned throughout the summer, as we usually do. many of our custodians have been on quarantine, and so obviously we've had limited staff that can actually, so it would also give our buildings a little bit more time to be completed. At this point, we're supposed to get our PPEs from the state, but it would give us time to really see a lot of the PPEs that we're receiving. We're not sure what, for the hand sanitizer, we're not sure, do we need to go buy hand sanitizer stations? Are they the pop kind? Are they coming in a jug? What, so really gives us an opportunity to see what we have and to see what else we need to put into place in order for those to work. And so just a variety of things that would really benefit us from postponing the start date a little bit more. And then of course that could change tomorrow as to what our plans necessarily are. So that goes back to that be flexible. But at this point, I'd really like to hear your thoughts on our current plans that you're currently aware of that was posted a couple of weeks ago. Speak to the percentage of about that 69% and 31%, and any thoughts you have in general about the opening and the how you can support.
I have a question about teachers. I know the percentage of the students, but how many teachers have expressed concerns about going back to the classroom?
Right now, we have roughly, HR is now calling. We put out a survey a couple of weeks ago, and now not every teacher or employee actually completed it to let us know their information, and so we're in the process of getting a full list. But right now, I think there were 4 categories, like not concerned at all, somewhat concerned, and then extremely concerned. There's about 10% that are extremely concerned about returning. And I say that I think that 10% is based off of their own health and underlying issues. The number is a little bit larger when it comes to people in their household that they're concerned about, not them personally. And we're obviously going to, and it depends on how we're able to accommodate our teachers and our staff is based 100% on the choices of our students. If we have 100% of our students that are coming to school, which we don't, but in some of the communities there is that much, it really limits the amount of teachers that can teach remotely. But at this point, we're going to try to accommodate them as much as possible according to their concerns. Obviously, with those who have personal underlying conditions first, and then possibly, if we can, accommodate those who have family members within their household that they're concerned for as well.
Also, do you feel like this will be sliding every 6 weeks? Will it be 6 weeks we're going to do this, and then next week 6 weeks we're going to do this, and then the next 6 weeks we're going to do this?
Well, it is today. Yes, not necessarily on a 6 weeks basis either. Today I met with the Hunt County Health Advisory Board and all the superintendents, and not all of them, but most of the 13 of us came. And we're by far, by double size, the largest in Hunt County. And so their needs were completely different than our needs. It was, they actually said, well, maybe we just need to have a meeting with Greenville Bites just because it was, we have so many more students than the rest of them. But it was, the health department will determine when we shut down and how many times we shut down. TEA has also given some guidelines. But for example, if a kid is sick or kid's parents tested positive, that very well may mean that whole class go home for 14 days. And then depending on what happens during that 14 days, another class could be home. And so we've talked to principals to really start tracking, because we could have every single day on Tuesday, Miss Cruz's class is coming back. On Friday, Miss Woodruff's class is coming back. On Monday, Miss Dr. Butcher's class is going home. I mean, it could happen throughout the entire school year. And And so all of those things, and that's, we can only imagine how it will be until we actually get into it. But, and then we'll also have the Hunt County Health Department coming in, and they will tell us who all needs to go home, which areas needs, who's been exposed according to their definitions. And so we're working under two sets of guidelines right now, where the state is telling us you have to do this, and then we'll have the Hunt County on top of that telling us what we can and should do.
Will you match the 30% of teachers that want to stay, that are concerned about coming back? Will you match those with the students that are wanting to do virtual, and have a defining line of, like, these teachers want to be at home and these students want to be learning at home? So we're going to, I know that's not possible in every grade, but in some of the grades.
Yeah, our plan, and we're still massaging our plan to see how that will work. But ideally, we will have teachers that need to be at home or teaching kids who are at home. It very well could be, depending on some situations, where a teacher is in a classroom isolated by themselves without students, teaching those students at home as well. So it's a variety of different models we're looking at. But we're trying to match up teachers and students as much as possible. With that also is a district-wide, the 69 or the 70-30, just for easy numbers. But we have some campuses, like Crockett is more like 40-60. Lamar is more like 80-20. And so you have a variety of different pockets throughout the district as well. And then, of course, the majority of our kids still have not signed up. And tomorrow we'll probably throw another option in the game. But yeah, we're looking at trying to match folks up as much as possible.
Just for my own vote or my own opinion, I am more for at school or a blended of both. So that I don't want to do completely virtual. I would prefer that my kiddo has some kind of access to the teacher in a classroom, because she learns better that way. Not so much my middle schooler, but definitely my elementary kiddo. She needs that. That's just a personal opinion, but I know that mimics a lot of other people I know that are parents in the district. And I do know that a lot of people were upset about not having a blended option. So this is going to make at least a small percentage of parents happy that we might be able to.
Yeah, and that just came on as an option on Friday, the 17th was when it was approved.
Well, what will this do to, we changed at one time to have that 6 weeks reporting periods, that we change it to 9 weeks. Are we spending that 9 weeks? What will happen to our calendar if, in fact, we don't start at the time that we were thinking about when we got calendar? What happens to our calendar if we start after Labor Day?
The good thing is, because we added 20 minutes to each day, because now we're required to go to school a certain amount of minutes per year, not amount of days. So what it will, so those 20 minutes per day actually added about, I think, a little over a week. I think 7 days total to the minute, if we were counting that would have, from last year's calendar, is kind of 7 days extra of instruction. So on a tentative schedule that we've made up, of course, the calendar is a board approved option. So it would be totally up to you guys what was approved. But what we've looked at, if that's the direction we go, we've tentatively looked at something that would ultimately, it would take away the fall break that we had, that was approved, that you approved before, that week off in October, which was really for the state fair, and we no longer have the state fair, so that wouldn't necessarily be that big of a deal. and it's coming much earlier in the school year. We start at September, so it's not as a needed break, quote unquote. And it takes us to students. Last day on the calendar we've looked at, if we went this route that we'd be proposing, students would be out on the 28th of May 2021, and teachers would come back June 1st as their last day. So it still gets us out in May, basically, but takes away a full week. It would also allow our teachers to work. They'd have more time in the beginning for training. Throughout the school year, they would work less days. So ultimately, it would give them, we did the calculations with the amount of days they're working. It would be about $1,055 on average that teachers would get without having to work for it. So it's not a raise, but it's at least acknowledging the extra work that they're doing this year, but working less days on the calendar.
You said that was how much that you thought that you calculated 1,055?
Yes, 1,055.
Does that keep us aligned with PJC for the dual credit kids at the high school?
At this point, I think PJC realizes that we have to make some tough decisions, and they are going to be as flexible as they possibly can with our schedule. Because we very well, some instances, like I was just saying earlier to Ms. Cruz, a kid could be in school for 2 weeks and then home for 2 weeks without even, so everyone's being very flexible with our scheduling this year.
Okay.
Well, I like the idea of I like the idea of starting school in September, because this gives the teachers and the staff time for the extra training. I know that because this is such a dilemma, that they're going to need some additional training and how do we handle this? What do we do with that? And if we have that available for them, for our teachers, I think it will make a very much smoother transition. If you're having to have in-class learning, in-school learning, and then remote learning or learning at home, to me, it seems like you either need to have more teachers teaching, or that seems to be a problem in my mind.
Yeah, it was hard for me to wrap my mind around it as well. But basically, what we'd end up doing, an at-home kid may not necessarily be based, because now physically, you have to have 22. Let's talk about elementary. You have to have 22 kids in a classroom. You can't go over that. But if they're at home, I can have a Crockett teacher teaching 5 Lamar kids, 5 Bowie kids, 5 Crockett kids, and 5 whatever other campus. And so that's the way it helped me understand it a little bit better, because the kids who aren't here, we don't have to accommodate them at their campus per se. We just have to have a teacher assigned to them. And so they could technically have kids from multiple campuses if that's the way the numbers worked, from the same grade, of course.
What happens if we are able to, sometime in the not too distant future, we all hope, come back to some sort of normalcy where all of our kids are 100% in the classroom? If a child starts out with Mrs. Jones and now he's at Mrs. Smith's room, is that going to be a problem?
Well, we will probably change throughout the year as things change and parents get more information. And the ruling so far by the TEA is this is a program we are offering all school year. But at every 9-week point, a parent can say, I had my kid in school the last 9 weeks. I don't want him there this coming 9 weeks. I'm taking him out, or vice versa. And so that's kind of the unknown that we know at that time we're going to have to deal with and figure it out to make it work. But that is something that can happen every 9 weeks. And there will be some instances where we'll have to make exceptions, in the middle of the 9 weeks for certain kids based off of individual needs. But one thing that we started doing this week, and we're telling parents that we would like for them to make a decision now, whichever way they're leaning, so we can go ahead and create some sort of schedule. Because right now, with only a little over 2,000 kids, we still don't know what over 3,000 of our kids are going to do, are going to choose. So we're asking our parents, please let us know which way you're leaning now, so we can make some sort of decision. 2 weeks before school starts, we will open it back up for any parent that's had last minute, they found out more information, their situation has changed, whatever. We'll open it back up for them to change. And then we'll have a final schedule 2 weeks before school starts. Then we'll allow those kids to go through the first 2 weeks of school once school starts. And then we will have, at that point, we're also offering, how did you like the first 2 weeks of school? If you didn't like it, you want to switch up at that point, doing it as well. We have not necessarily thought of how. We know it'll be a lot of work and we'll have to do a lot of juggling to make it happen. But at this point, how that looks really depends on how many folks change their mind. But it will be constantly in flux, I guess.
Well, I know a number of the Metroplex districts have said that they're not going to start school until after Labor Day. And based upon what you've said to us today, I think that would be an appropriate thing for us to do. It sounds like the campuses are all in favor of that. And so it makes sense to me to give you time to have things lined up and laid out. If it doesn't mean we're really going past the date that we were talking about for the end of school anyway, I see no impact to us.
Great.
And that would be a decision if you if I got obviously we're not voting on that tonight, we're just having a discussion. That would probably be something I would ask for the board to reconvene, similar to what we did last week, the quick board meeting we had, just to approve a new calendar so we can start letting our parents know, possibly later this week, because it would not have to be posted for 72 hours. We can do an emergency meeting based off of the COVID-19 pandemic, which this is exact as a result of the pandemic. So we could call a meeting any day this week, later this week, and discuss that and see if it was approved so we can hurry and let parents know.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
How are the sports and band, are students going to be able to participate in that? Do they have to be at school in person, or can they still do online but come to school for that period?
Well, that's twofold. UIL released today. They are not allowing practices for we're a 5A school district. There's 1A all the way up to 6A. The smaller school districts, according to size, you go from 1 to 6. Today they released and said 1 through 4A schools, bands and athletics can start practice as early as, I think, August 3rd. 5A and 6A, which includes us, cannot start school until September 7th. Cannot start practice until September 7th. So it's kind of within the same,
But the kids that are doing their schedules, and say they're in band or they're in football, volleyball, whatever, how is that going to look for the school year?
The rule had been that, as it stands today, it was you can participate if you're at home 100% of the time. You can participate before or after school. With us possibly introducing a blended model, that could change totally. And I don't have the answer for that yet.
I don't understand why anyone would want to participate in a group activity if they didn't want to be at school.
Exactly.
I mean, they're exposing themselves to more of the coronavirus. If that's the purpose of not being in school, then why would you want to be doing activities where you're going to be doing, around more than, 10 people participating in that, especially band when you're blowing on instruments and, your respiratory drops are going everywhere. So, that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, and we're one of the few in Hunt County that even is allowing before or after school. Most of them are just not allowing. If you're at home, you're not participating.
And how are they going to get like the fine arts or their PE?
We're looking at offering other fine arts that you can do at home. Music appreciation. There's a lot of fine art options that don't require performance.
How much of the go ahead, Kim.
I was just going to say I'm in favor of whatever we can do to limit the number of kids in the school at the same time, just so that we can do the best that we can with the social distance. So, taking advantage of whatever flexibility we're given seems like a prudent thing to do. You're frozen.
I think that is a wise idea to get as few kids in school at the same time as we possibly can. It sounds like it is a impossible task to do that, but I think that somehow we'll have to do it. Because if a teacher has 22 kids in their classroom, and one of them turns up positive test for the coronavirus, well then all 22 kids will have to be isolated. If we go by the guidelines that the CDC puts out, you have no way of knowing which kid is one who is tested positive. To me, that seems. That means we're gonna have for at least 14 of 2 weeks. You'll have a whole class out. Does that make any sense? It doesn't make sense, but.
Because each night our buildings will be completely disinfected. So if we, at any given point, if someone is exposed, it makes only half of the class exposed, not the full. The only issue you'll run into at that point is the kids who weren't exposed and their teacher was exposed. Those kids will also, they still can come to school, but they will be on a computer with their teacher teaching them from home on quarantine. So at some point we understand that's one of the major things with the training the teachers. Everyone at some point is going to be an online teacher, whether it's for 2 weeks out of the school year or it's for 18 weeks. So they need to be aware because even today when speaking with the county health department, they were saying there's no question cases are going to go up drastically when kids get into school. It's just going to happen. And so we will have this summer. We've had, like I said, we've had to send home nearly our entire grounds department. We've had custodians that have gone home. We've had secretaries and all these things. So people will be exposed. It's just a matter of being prepared to continue instruction when that happens.
a question about Governor Abbott. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. He announced on Friday that there was $200 million going to school districts for online learning. Have you heard anything about that?
Yes, it's called Project Connection. They are trying to get a big deal with different companies to get hotspots for students at home without internet. That is a matching grant, so to speak. So districts, so they can get them obviously because they're buying them for the entire state at a much cheaper rate than an individual district can get them because of the bulk. But the district at that point will have to pay half of whatever that price is. So so last I looked, I think they were like $15. AT&T had them like for $15, and you can chime in at this part too, Shannon, if you will, for $15. So we would have to pay $750, and that's per month for each device if we did that.
Huh?
Yeah.
Wow. And what about STAR? Have we talked about that and all the things we talked about for school?
STAR at this point, to be honest with you, has been the least of our concern. We're trying to get quality. We're trying to have a safe environment first and foremost, and then to get a quality instructional program. According to the state, we're still moving forward with STAR and full-blown STAR at the end of the year. There's expanded the windows for STAR, so that because different districts are going, some districts are going all the way into June. They've expanded the window as to when you can offer it. We've heard nothing other than expect to have STAR. We are having it, but we have no idea how we're going to test kids that are at home, how test security will work with. We don't know any of the details other than we are having STAR this school year.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I had heard that Nederland ISD Board of Trustees passed a resolution calling on the TEA to suspend accountability for the upcoming school year because of the gaps pertaining to COVID. So is that something that we could possibly entertain at some point?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just say the word and I can put it on an agenda resolution.
I believe that we should. I think we should pass a resolution. We should at least talk about it.
Okay.
Because I think that's a major worry for all the teachers and the students.
Yeah. Consider it done.
Other questions?
I have one. I like the extended school year, starting the school after Labor Day. And my question is, how about the special needs students during the COVID, Dr. Williams?
If the calendar changed to after Labor Day, those kids would still start after Labor Day. But each special ed kid, all of the guidelines we put out do not apply to them. They are governed by their individual committee. So if a student needs to be in school 100% of the, like at the high school, for example, we may do either you're online 100% or you're on a hybrid. Special ed kids very well, depending on their art committee, can say they go every single day. It doesn't matter what your schedule is at the high school. But as far as the board changes the calendar, that school doesn't start until September 8th, then they are subject to that. But after school starts is when they get the option of how they attend based on their individual needs.
One of my questions about the therapy-wise, wouldn't you have to come a lot more in person due to the therapies, or?
Again, that's all an individual art committee. If they need to have OT, and if that's happening before September 8th or scheduled, those things could still absolutely take place. But, I hesitate to say anything that's going to be broad about special ed because each of them have their own individual education.
Okay, I'll say something now. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Krista. I had several things. Number one, I'm really liking the idea of starting after Labor Day. Also, what did when you went to the health department, how do they feel that the virus is going? Do they see us flattening out in the near future, or is this just, or are we just stuck with it for the next year? And also, how will we get meals to the kids for those that don't come to school or those that don't come every day? And I heard the tail end of Roger's thing about special ed. I'm learning more about like the life skill classes. What will we be able to do for them?
What was your first question? One more time. I got meals, special ed, and
Health department.
The health department was basically, they're expecting it at least in the near future to spike because school is starting. We'll have groups gathered in the thousands that we hadn't had since this pandemic began. So they are fully intended to have a spike. That's because more people will be around each other. Also, we're not a community within ourselves. We have, for example, we have a large amount of our staff who drive in from like Dallas County, where there's thousands of cases, or over 1,000 cases a day. So we have that. So we'll have those folks coming into our community as well on a daily basis now, which they don't. So they did not predict anything long term, but they did say that they fully anticipate short term with school starting that it will definitely spike. The issue that we ran into, and I shared this in heads up, but the Dr. Gina Rushing is the health authority. She has authority during this pandemic to make decisions for the school district that could possibly override the decision of the school board. And so, but she was faced with this, and we basically, that board is set up to advise her. They are not a voting board; they're just an advisory board, and she has full authority in the situation. So today, when all of the soups went, it was really, like I said earlier, it was tough for her because Greenville was in a world of itself, by itself. Because Wolf City, for example, was saying we've had 8 cases the entire time, and and no deaths. So we're fine. We're ready to start school. We're ready to move forward. And then you had certain districts that they don't. They have 1 class per grade level, so they have 13 teachers, 13 grade levels, and they're in 1 building. And so they have a little bit more their own challenges, obviously, that we don't have, but they also we have some challenges that they don't have with that. And so we left with really not knowing whether or not she will make a decision or not. She fully understands that the school board also has some authority to make decisions, and with it being so diverse, I guess is the word I want to use for the districts within Hunt County. I think she's probably, and this is Liggins talking, she did not speculate one way or the other, but I would assume she's going to let individual school districts make their choices for what's best for their unique communities. Moving on to meals, we will, so what we have so far is grab and go meals, drive up grab and go meals. We very well may change that to utilize our bus services to take meals to bus stops on any given day. We may provide meals, especially at the elementary levels. Maybe on Mondays, we know a child is going to be at school only 3 days this week because of the hybrid. Give them their meals on Monday to take home for the 2 days that they won't be at school. that's another thing we're still looking at and working out what it will be. So a lot of the plans we had, introducing the hybrid really threw a wrench into those, and so we're back to the drawing board to figure out how it will look and how we'll best be able to. But they have approved that we still can deliver meals and have meals picked up to go. Unlike last summer, or unlike during the summer feeding program, or what it was during the spring when we let out, folks that are on paid lunch will have to pay for their lunch during this time. So if you're on a hybrid schedule and you don't come to school this week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, if you want lunch from the school, it'll come out of your lunch account if you're on paid lunch. Unlike it was during the summer where it was, and during the spring where everyone could just come up and eat for free. And the last one was SPED. I hate to speculate on individual students' needs, but I anticipate most of our more severe, specialized classrooms, self-contained classrooms, will probably be full day every day in person if the parent so chooses an option. But again, that is an hard decision, each individual child.
Okay. Were the 69% of kids that signed up to go to school every day, were they mostly older kids, or was the mix pretty much across the board?
It's a good mix. In fact, the biggest, well, I'll just give you the numbers. I don't have them, and again, this is 3,000 kids are missing from this list, over 3,000. But pre-K, we have 9 at home, 33 in person so far. Kindergarten, 29 at home, 90 in person. First grade is 63 and 114. Second grade is 36 and 132. Third grade is 64 and 116. Fourth grade is 50 and 116. Sixth grade is 50 and 107, so that's about 33, 66. Seventh grade is 61, 115. Eighth grade is 45 and 108. Ninth grade is 55 and 102. 10th grade is 39 and 112. 11th grade is 57 and 94. And 12th grade is 38 and 91. So some of them higher than others. And of course we have different campuses. And I will share this with you at the end of the week. Hopefully we'll have a whole lot more numbers. And I'll also share it with you by campus at that time in heads up, so you'll see where we're at the end of the week. Afterwards, we do a big marketing campaign this week to get folks on.
Okay. So the AD days with like elementary students, they would go Monday, Wednesday, Friday one week, and Tuesday, Thursday the next week?
Yes, ma'am. And that will only be one of 3 options. We're still offering those parents who need their kids at school and at school every day. They still will have that option to be there every single day. And those parents who just do not want their kids there at all, they will still have that option to not have them there at all. So for elementary, it would be the 3 options.
Okay.
But high school would more than likely be the 2 options. You're either at home 100% of the time or you're hybrid only.
Other questions? So that's clear as mud. But we really appreciate all the effort, and it's the key word, flexibility, clearly. But we appreciate all the energy being put towards planning.
Thank you. I appreciate you all as well.
So I believe that means we can move on to action and discussion items, unless anybody else has something. I wanted to backtrack just a second. During our appointment for Mr. Rackley, I should have specified that he will be filling that seat vacated by Mr. Kelso until the special election, November 3rd.
It'd be one of the shortest tenures in history.
but still very valuable. Thank you so much. Okay, so item 8A, discuss potential bond refunding for interest cost savings and take action to adopt an order authorizing the issuance of refunding bonds, establishing the parameters for refunding, and delegating authority to the administration. That's a lot of stuff.
Yes, I will hand this over to first. I went blank. Sherry Dodson, our CFO, introduce our speaker.
Good evening, Dr. Liggins, President Dr. Butcher, and members of the board. Tonight I have Doug from Samco that will discuss the potential of bond refunding.
Okay, good evening, everybody.
Hello.
Good to be back with you again. I think we had a presentation a couple of months ago and talked through some of the options coming up. And I'm going to show you a chart momentarily that kind of gives us incentive to start moving with decisions sooner rather than later. I also have Rob Collins attending tonight. Rob serves as your attorney with respect to the preparation of the order, serves as a liaison between you and the Attorney General's office, who has to approve any type of bond that is issued. And so if there are any legal questions, I may rely on Rob to help us out. But I do have a presentation before you. I don't think I control it, so I will just kind of give an indicator that we can move to the next screen for the person that does. So I'm ready to go to the next screen. Okay, so let me minimize everybody. There we go. So on this screen, you see the Bond Buyers Index of municipal bonds. To the far bottom right, you see that we are currently setting record low levels in interest rates. This is a national index of municipal bonds. Bottom left corner, it tracks to January of 2001. The middle blue horizontal bar is the average during that 20-year period, and it was 4.22%. And again, the bottom right is 2.12%. So we have extremely low interest rates in the environment that we are in. You may recall that back in April, we had a bit of turmoil in our markets. We've settled down, and we've settled down at much, much lower interest rate levels. The top of this chart is in October of 2008. That was the Wall Street meltdown, the liquidity crisis, the self-imposed recession, not driven by medical issues, but just, some bad lending through home mortgages, etc. And that was the opposite effect. We had very, very high interest rates at that time period. So with that market movement, we can now go to the next slide. This slide shows what we've seen this year, and this is called the Municipal Market Data Yield Curve. So when you look on the start of the green and the blue and the red, that's a very short one-year maturity. And if you go to the far right of the green and the blue and the red, that's a 30-year maturity. So generally speaking, a 30-year interest rate should be slightly higher or more higher than a short-term rate, because you're having to forego your money for a longer period of time. When you look at this, you can see that we started the year in the blue, January of 2020, pre-COVID, and then COVID hit in March, and markets just completely melted down, including our market. All asset classes were being sold, including stocks, bonds, gold. Everything was being sold except U.S. Treasuries, and so interest rates went way up. And then, since then, not only have we come back down, we've bypassed where we started the year, and the red bar is where our current rates are. Now, keep in mind that we're going to track two types of interest rates, one being a tax-exempt rate. That is where the interest is tax-exempt to the investor and therefore should be lower than a taxable interest rate, which the investor has to pay taxes on their income from that investment and therefore should be higher. So we can go to the next curve where we're tracking taxable interest rates as well. It is the same story except a different market. Again, this is a taxable interest rate market. Now, up until very recently, we never would have ever discussed this particular market with you. But in 2017, with federal legislation changing tax rates, including corporate tax rates and individual tax rates, they eliminated our ability to refund bonds in advance of the call date on a tax-exempt basis. So, for example, and I'll cover it in detail momentarily, you have a bond that is callable in 2024. Well, it will need to stay outstanding as is if we tried to wait to do a tax-exempt refinancing of that bond. Our only current ability to refinance that today is through this taxable market, and it's had the same effect that the very first graph did. In January in blue, it was at low levels. Then in March, it was at extremely high levels. And then it's come down to below where we started the year in red. And so hence the reason from the April discussion with you that was kind of, this could be coming soon. What are our game plans should be? What decisions should we make? We kind of previewed that, and then here tonight we do have an action agenda item. So I now can go to the next chart. And so the next chart, we put this one together because we try to say, okay, if we're going to have to do taxables today, how do taxable interest rates compare to the tax-exempt interest rates today for Texas school bonds? So this says at the top, current PSF, AAA, tax-exempt, and taxable yield curves. So PSF stands for Permanent School Fund. The Permanent School Fund is rated AAA by the national rating agencies, which is the highest credit quality that there is in the nation. And when you look at the two, there is some spread between the blue and the red curve in the early years, and very little spread between the red and the blue in 15 and on out. So our options are to wait to try to get to a blue curve out in 2024, but we don't have any idea what the blue curve is going to look like in 24, or we take advantage of the red curve in today's market, even though it's slightly higher than the blue curve. And those, in its basic nutshell, what we have to analyze when we look at this. And I'll go through a few other details that we think about when we try to make the decision as to when we should or should we wait to do a refunding. So with that, we can go to the next slide. This is your outstanding debt service profile, a very low profile, very straightforward profile. You have some yellow and red going through 2026. So in 2016, you did a refunding of a bond and you clipped off the top of that bond, and hence the reason that the yellow, blue, and red is slightly below the blue going out. But we're going to be able to change that when we refund the blue bars. And the blue bars are the ones that are callable in 2024. And we have an opportunity to refinance those and lower the interest rate and therefore reduce the payments. And that's what we're looking at today. And so that's your profile as it stands today. The next slide just reiterates what I mentioned before. You have that little 2011 refunding. There's only 560,000 left. It has an August 15, 2021 call date. It's available to refund in April of 21 on a tax-exempt basis. Then it becomes a current refunding and therefore eligible for tax-exempt. but there's really nothing here. I mean, it's 560,000. It's very small. So the driving decision maker here for any refinancing in today's market is the 2014 bond, which again, right in the middle of this chart is callable February 2024. It has callable interest rates of 4 to 5%, and it's not available in the far right column to be refunded on a tax exempt basis until October of 2023. So we go through this very complicated and very sophisticated decision of what's the risk, the reward of doing it today versus waiting 3 years. And there's a methodology that we employ. And if you want to go through that detail, we probably need to schedule about a 2-hour workshop. And Sherry and Dr. Liggins can probably speak to that because I've gone over it multiple times with them. And it'll make your head spin a little bit. But just know that we analyze when is the right time to do this. In April, we weren't quite ready to get into that detail. We wanted to outline kind of some options and game planning for the long term. But today we think we're to the point where you need to delegate authority to the administration to possibly complete this refunding if we meet certain targets. And I'll talk about those targets momentarily. This delegation in the order that you're adopting is good for 6 months. If we don't do the refunding in that 6-month period, we'll come back to you and seek another delegation for another 6-month period. If we do the refunding in that period, we will come back to you with a non-action item and just update you on what took place in the market. So if you don't mind, we can go to the next slide. The next slide is a version of what we talked about in April. In column 2, your tax rate for 4 years was at $1.04. Then you went to $1.06 in 1819 of the 2 golden pennies. And then we had tax compression following that legislative session down to 99 cents. So we've had a lowering by mandate of the Texas government in column 2 from $1.04, $1.06 now down to 99. And y'all will be going through or have gone through budgeting sessions to talk about what 99 might look like next year. Column 3 is the INS tax rate, which is only for voted bonds. When your voters approved the last bond election, your tax rate went to 31.5 cents. What's not shown on this slide, but what you all know, is that your tax base, your net taxable value, has grown during this same time period. And as that tax base has grown, your tax rate has dropped. So you've gone from 31.5 cents now down to 23.85. And in April, we discussed that it's okay for that tax rate to decline, but the problem is in a long range, in a long-term perspective, the lower that goes, the more it's going to have to go up when you have to do your next facility plan. And you truly have a need at your middle school, and I'm not an architect, I'm not an engineer, and I'm certainly not an educator that uses the building, but I think there's a pretty clear indication that sometime in the near future, you're going to need to do a program, a bond program, for a facility improvement for an upgrade to the middle school. And so when we look at the refunding, we look at it from a perspective of, yes, just lowering the interest rate and getting savings, that makes a lot of sense. But we also look at it as how we can refund these bonds and the savings generate bond capacity for the school district into the future for your next need. And we also can utilize that to change the structure of those payments that you just saw that were flat so that we can kind of modify our trajectory of column 5, which is the INS fund balance, and still keep that tax rate in column 3 at 23.85, because we know we're going to need that whenever the day comes that you need to address the middle school. You're going to need those pennies in the INS tax rate. So if you lower the 23.85, say, down to 13 cents, we know that when you do the middle school, you're going to need those 10 cents back plus more, and you're going to be talking to your voters about something more than just going from 23.85 to, say, 27 cents. So going from 13 to 27 cents would be a huge number, but going from 24 cents to 27 cents is a relatively minor adjustment to be able to build that school. So we want the refunding to put us in a position to pay bonds off early, change the structure of the bond payments, thinking about the future, and maintain some tax rate in column 3 at a level that was well below what the voters approved back when you did the last bond election, but doesn't continue lower because that's already happening with column 2. So that's the game plan. Column 5, you can see that your INS fund balance, and the two numbers in red are attached to the footnote where you changed your fiscal year end to June 30th. We measure this on an 8/31 basis, and this year on around 8/31, you're going to have a little over $4 million. And if you keep the 2385, you'll be adding to the $4 million. That's more money than you need in the INS fund balance. So another part of this game plan is to not only refinance for lower interest rates, but to pay principal off early. There's no reason to have principal out there when you have INS fund balance. And again, paying off principal early on the old bonds means that the sooner you get to your next ability to address your next generation of facility needs. So if you don't mind, we'll go to the next slide. And because I'm covering a lot of information, just keep in mind that given the setup of the video conferencing, I will definitely turn it over to you for questions at some point, and we can go back to any slide that we need to, and I can clarify any of the comments that I've made, because I'm covering really a good 3-hour workshop, concepts into a shorter period, but that's because you have an administration that you believe in and trust in, and that I work with, and we go through the details, and we think it's prudent to give you the big picture here. And so the considerations, number 1 on here is federal legislation. There is, the federal government in session through the end of July. They then go on recess through August, and they come back after Labor Day. There is a couple of legislators that are promoting the return of advanced refundings on a tax-exempt basis as part of a stimulus package. I don't know if that's 2. We need a whole lot more votes than 2. And so far, we don't have a whole lot of indication that it has momentum, but it's something to watch. We don't want to do a taxable advance refunding at the end of July and find out in the 1st of August that they did in fact pass legislation when they were in session in July. So it's something that we're keeping an eye on, and it affects the timing of this issue. The outstanding call dates, the reason I put this on here is you really only have one, so we need to choose wisely. I was at a board meeting last night where they had about 12 different call dates, and so we get to pick and choose, and we get to hedge our bets whether we do it all of it today or all of it tomorrow. We get to do some today, some tomorrow. So we have to make a choice here that's wise. The interest rate market, it is at low levels in both tax exempt and taxable. There's a 4th bullet point here. Again, it's a fancy term, but I'm going to explain it. It's called negative arbitrage. All this simply means is that every day that goes by that we get closer to 2024, the more efficient this becomes. We have to measure this mathematical efficiency gain over time as we get closer to your call date 24 with the next bullet point, which is market risk. If you find anyone who can tell you where interest rates will be in 2024, please let me know, because I want to talk to them. And I think that I'm going to find someone who's not really legitimate, because it's impossible to predict where interest rates will be tomorrow, much less where they will be in 2024. The next bullet here says savings versus structure. The beauty of your call date is that we're hoping to achieve both savings from interest cost reduction, structure to kind of balance your budget over the next couple of years in the INS account and accelerate principal, preparing yourselves for the next bond election whenever that may occur. And so if you're paying principal down over the next year or 2 on old bonds, That's really good. And then the next bullet point, early redemption, you're going to see that we want to use some of that INS fund balance to prepay on those bonds that are callable in 24. So the impact on the bond model is significant. And with that impact, it's a reason why we are very excited about trying to take advantage of the market and refund to provide future flexibility for the school district. So with that, we can go to the next slide that summarizes this. Again, it is an advanced taxable refunding, the only type that we can do in today's market. The call date is February of 2024. It's $62 million. It goes out to 2044. The interest rates are 4% and 5%. We're hoping to lower that substantially. This does reflect current market rates. We do plan to use INS fund balance for principal reduction. So you're getting savings from lowering the 4% and 5%, as well as paying off principal early, where you no longer incur interest on those bonds. And again, we're changing the structure. If you don't mind, flip back to slide that was the yellow and blue bars. Right there, thank you. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some of the blue bars out here in 27 through 24 and accelerate that to 22 and 23, so that 2385 or 0.2385 cents is pretty much a balanced budget. So we're neither depleting our INS fund balance nor adding to it. And that allows you for 2 years of early principal reduction, so that the bars in the back get lower than what we would otherwise do by just lowering the interest rate. So now you can skip forward back to that page that you were on. Yes. That's what that structure of refunding says at the bottom. Additional principal being prepaid at 21-22 and 22-23 for a quasi or approximate balanced budget. Next slide, please. If I was going to give you the 3-second version of my presentation, this would be the slide. We have an opportunity to achieve $19 million of savings, with $3 million of that being a cash contribution from the district for early prepayment. So the net estimated savings is $16 million, and $16 million is a lot of savings for this district on that $62 million, and it puts it lowers your payments. It puts you in good position for the future. It helps you control your INS tax rate. And that's the 30-second version, is we're trying to achieve $16 million of net debt service savings. In April, this was not achievable. As late as May, this was not achievable. Now that we're into July, this is achievable, and hence we're here today. We're not going to do this refunding in July, although we're going to get to work on it in July. We won't do it until the earliest in August, because we want to see if there's any change to federal law. If there's not, there's a very good chance that we will lock in or try to lock in $16 million worth of net savings to the district. And the last slide, the last slide is an action item. I will read the agenda item. That person making the motion can say you would like to adopt or make a motion to adopt the order authorizing the issuance of refunding bonds as presented. But the full language here is adopt an order authorizing the issuance of refunding bonds, establishing the parameters, which is $16 million of net savings from this refunding, and delegating authority to the administration, so that when we go out and price these bonds and lock in the interest rate and lock in the savings, we don't have to have a board meeting. The administration can sign those documents and approve that because it met the parameters that we set tonight. So with that, that's a pretty full view of leading up to the agenda item. And now I will turn it over to you all for any questions. I can go back to any slides. And really appreciate the opportunity to be back with you again tonight. And so back to you, Dr. Liggins, Ms. Dodson, and board members.
Okay, questions?
Well, I think that you set up your 30-second slide specifically for me because I was having a hard time following that first it did. You did say on the tax rate on the INS that the taxpayers vote for that, but I was pretty sure that we set the tax rate for INS. Is that correct?
Yeah, go back to the tax rate slide, please. Yes, there. Ms. Cruz, you're absolutely right. The school board sets the tax rate. You do set that tax rate. The one in column 2 is given to you by the state now. You used to have discretion in that setting. You no longer have that. For you to go above $1.04, you needed voter approval to go above $1.04. And once they did that, that was based on your prior board action that you want to go above it. In column 3, that INS tax rate, you do have discretion to set, and you do set that annually. What I meant when I said the voters approved it, really what happened is the voters approved the bonds that then made the 31.5 cents what you needed to set in that year. So when y'all went to the voters, you said, hey, if you vote for these bonds that we're going to use for these projects, we estimate that we'll need an INS tax rate of 31.5 cents. But you do have discretion each and every year for setting that tax rate and the tax rate overall.
And your presentation is that this opportunity is something that wasn't available to us in April or May, but it has become available to save $16 million just recently.
That's correct. You had savings that we've been tracking for the entire year. And I'm measuring the savings that we can get today versus what we might get in the future. And I mentioned that one term, negative arbitrage, that the further we get into the future, potentially the more savings we could get. So what I'm going to describe for you as perfection would be that 2-point-something% first graph, very, very low record low interest rates occurring in February of 24. That we would get a huge amount of savings, but we can't predict that we will be at record low interest rates in 2024. So I measure the time gain versus where rates are today. And that first chart shows that rates have come down below what were then really low levels. So it really changes our opinion on the timing. And in the April workshop, we discussed tax rate setting and tax rate management for future and collecting excess money for early principal reduction and so forth. And that's a part, we're doing both a refinancing, managing our tax rate, and some early reduction for the future.
Also, something you stated when we talked about this is, should the tax rate, the INS tax rate, remain the same, and should we decide hypothetically to go out for a bond in, let's say, May of 2023, that if nothing changed, if property values that from this year remain the same for the next 3 years, which hasn't been the trend, they've obviously been growing. But if nothing grew at all, and with this refinance, and we decided to pass the bond at that time for a $65 million new middle school, that we could pass it probably for as low as raising the tax rate about 5 cents.
Right. 45 million, maybe no tax rate increase, and those types of numbers are things we want to go with you. And I think that's the whole point of this. And that is, if you maintain 2385, your next bond election is going to either be no tax rate increase or a very small, very minor one. And I just think that's advantageous to the district. It's Your tax rate is below where you talked to your voters in the last bond election. It's below from tax rate compression in the M&O tax rate. Generally speaking, I've been doing this for over 25 years, and I'm not a psychologist or a sociologist or anything like that. But generally speaking, people forget that you lowered their tax rate, and they remember when you raised it. And so tax rate management, I believe, is a good public policy, goal and strategy, and I think you have that opportunity. If y'all told me that you had zero needs and you gained by lowering your tax rate something, then it'd be a different strategy. But what y'all told me in April, I heard many of you bring up the middle school, is that the future means that we will have to address the middle school. And so putting yourself in a position by paying off the existing bonds sooner, so that then you have less bonds outstanding when you need to take on more bonds, that makes perfect sense to me.
So the only thing we can use this money on is to pay debt. And if we keep the tax rate where it is, when we need to build a building and have to get a bond, then we could possibly not have to raise any taxes.
No tax rate, that's right.
Because we do have things that we need to update. It's evident that we need to update the middle school. I don't think anybody in the district that would say that we didn't.
Yeah. Your next bond election will determine whether or not you need to raise your INS tax rate from 2385 or not. And it will be based on the size and scope of it. And during those planning sessions, y'all will give me the parameters. Hey, Doug, what if we do a renovation project that costs $15 million? Or, hey, Doug, what if we do a middle school facility that costs $60 million? What would be the tax impact? And what I'm telling you today is the one thing I do know is if you're going into that bond election with 2385 as your INS tax rate, the impact is going to be less for whatever dollar amount you give me than if you lower the 2385 leading up to that.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, but as I understand it, keeping the rate, the INS rate is at 285, will allow us to save $16 million over the life of these bonds, correct?
Yeah, it's not the maintaining of the tax rate that does that. Although maintaining the tax rate does increase the amount of savings that we can generate from just lowering the interest rate. So you're getting debt service savings and interest cost savings from three factors. One is utilizing a portion of the $4 million that you already have in column 5. You're getting a portion of that $16 million of savings by lowering the interest rate from 4 and 5% down to say 2.75 or 3%. And then the third way you're getting savings is that you are changing your payments to pay on principal early for the next 2 years, and you can do that if you keep your tax rate at 2385. So out of that $16 million of savings, you're getting a lot of the savings from lowering your interest rate. You're getting some of your savings from paying off $3 million principal early, and you're getting some of your savings from amortizing additional principal with a 2385 tax rate for the next 2 years.
This allows us to save virtually $19 million, and that's your chart says 16% plus. It makes sense to me to do it.
I agree. All three factors, I think. Lowering the interest rate, early debt retirement, early principal payments. I agree with all three, and I think that's the strategy that puts you in the best position for the future. And if someone has a different opinion, that's perfectly fine, but I agree with what you just said.
Well, Doug, I would like to say I've received multiple emails from two companies in the past 3 weeks. We obviously use you all, but basically sharing the same information, wanting us to come on with them to do the same thing. So if that lends any credibility. Definitely, it's the market to do it because they're reaching out to superintendents to ask them.
Yes. Yeah, and those folks generally copy me because they know that I'm your advisor and I have a fiduciary responsibility to put the district's interest above all others. So I have a fiduciary responsibility under the law to put your interest above all others, including my own. And so those that are sending kind of the unsolicited proposals are just pointing out, I know you're about to do a deal and we want to be a part of it. And that's why you're getting those proposals. And they're starting to come in flurries because of that first chart that I showed you, which was that first schedule.
Yeah.
So if there's no further discussion, if you can put that slide back up that has the motion, and I will entertain a motion unless there are other questions.
So outside of this motion, what other things would the administration have to do?
The administration, they'll have to have a conversation with, now if I run out of battery, I apologize because I just got a low battery warning and I don't have my cord with me. This is my home computer at my office. So Rob, you may have to pick it up from here if I get lost. Rob's my backup plan down at the bottom there. But the administration is going to have to help us have discussions with rating analysts about the credit quality of the district, go over your budget, and things like that. But for the most part, they're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. They're going to let us do the work, bring them into the loop on a couple of conference calls, and then update them where we are with the market. And that's all they'll have to do. That's a very good question, and thank you on behalf of the administration for asking it. It's not heavy lifting on their part from here.
Are there any costs to us to do this right now, or what's the fees associated with it?
Yeah, there's no cost to doing this unless you complete the transaction and achieve the savings. All cost of issuance are blended into the refunding bond. They're not paid out of pocket. And therefore, if there is no refunding bond, there is no costs that are incurred. And the $16 million net takes into account any cost of issuing those bonds. And I will provide samples to your administration of what other $60 million refunding bonds look like so that you can be assured that your $60 million refunding is market driven in the cost of issuance. And we have to report the cost of issuance to the Attorney General's office. So I have access to cost of issuance for all Texas school districts that do a $60 million refunding.
Well, it seems to me like we should take advantage of the opportunity because I don't expect that we'll have it this time next year.
Okay. I will entertain that motion unless there are further questions.
I'll make a motion to adopt an order authorizing the issuance of refunding bonds, establishing the parameters for the refunding, and delegating authority to the administration.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
Was that Aletha? All right. So I have a motion from Tish and a second from Aletha. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
All opposed, speak nay. Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Thank y'all very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it.
Y'all have a great evening and best of luck with the COVID start of school. And I know that we have frontline healthcare workers, we have frontline educators, and we really appreciate the work that you are doing. We know how difficult it is. So best of luck with that. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Good questions, everybody. It's hard not to say you had me at you'll save 16 million. Good questions. Okay. Consider approval of the 2021 Student Code of Conduct.
Yes, for this presentation, I would like to call on Herbert O'Neill, our Chief School Leadership Officer.
Good evening, Dr. President, Dr. Butcher, Dr. Liggins, Board of Trustees. I'd like to consider for your approval the 2020-2021 Student Code of Conduct. This is a non-legislative year, so the Code of Conduct was not pushed down from the state. But because of things that are taking place, we did add 2 small items to our 2021 Student Code of Conduct. The first being that all students are expected to comply with all health and safety recommendations that are established by the county, the health department, any local, state, national orders, or the Texas Education Agency. So we've added that to ensure that if any orders are pushed down, that all of our students are expected to adhere to those. And we have one other item that we know that, as we've talked about tonight, we have students who will be at home doing virtual instruction, and we have students who will be at school, but we added that regardless of the mode of instruction, students would be subjected to the Student Code of Conduct. So we want to ensure that our students, while participating in online learning, understand and know that they must follow the District Code of Conduct. Any questions?
I'm just wondering whether it might not be clear to people that with rather, or maybe we should say all students, even if you are at home receiving instruction, are subject to conduct.
Or just examples, regardless of mode instruction, for example, home, something like that to clarify.
Okay, absolutely. We can add that in.
I think it would make it more clear.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
If they're being taught at home, is that what you're saying? They're still subject to the Student Code of Conduct?
Yes, ma'am.
How is that going to work? I'm not understanding. If they're at home.
For instance, a couple of things that could come up is, say, student, we expect them to make sure they're dressed appropriately, that type of thing. If a student were to, unfortunately not dress appropriately, then the teacher could reach out to them and speak to them about that. That gives them the leverage.
Oh, okay. So the online where they're doing it as the teacher's instruction, not
yes, ma'am. Yeah, because they're in class, and so we want. Okay.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Other questions? Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion on this item.
So moved.
Thank you, Roger. Do I have a second? Thank you, Tarina. Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And it looks like Aletha has stepped out, so that passes 6-0 with one, not really an abstention. It's just 6-0, but it passes. All right, so, great, moving on. Oh, big words. Consider approval of attestation for synchronous learning.
Yes.
Please explain.
This one, I would like to call our Deputy Superintendent, Sharon Booth.
President Dr. Butcher, Dr. Liggins, members of the board, there is a requirement based on the many changes that we continue to have in the teaching and learning arena that the state has asked us to ask you to allow us an attestation for synchronous education, that you have to, we do have to have board approval to say that we are indeed offering synchronous attestation. it does. I think you have a copy of it in your policy, but it talks about what we will do for students only, the educator support, tech support, and the instructional framework. And we have talked about at several meetings now. We're working really hard to make sure that we have equity in all our instructional platforms, and that we have, the state has provided us a rubric, and we feel like we're going to score a really high score on the teaching and learning module that we put together for both synchronous, asynchronous, and now move forward the hybrid model. So tonight, all we're asking you for is to allow us to submit to TEA that this board does agree that Greenville ISD will offer synchronous education for all our students.
Okay. Any questions? So I'll entertain a motion regarding this item. Let's see. To approve the synchronous attestation to be submitted to TEA on behalf of GISD. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Chakrina. Do I hear a second?
Second.
That was Ann, I believe.
Yes.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Aletha, did you vote? Is Aletha frozen? I think Aletha's frozen. Let's give her just a second to come unfrozen. Okay, well, she's still frozen, so I'm going to give it a 6. Oh, there she is.
Hello. Hello. I'm frozen. Sorry.
No problem.
I approved.
All right, so that passes unanimously. See, aren't we flexible? See, we've got this. It's okay. All right, so we're moving on to D, which is, did I finish? Yes. Passed unanimously. D, consider approval of transfer from fund balance account for items needed for school operations due to COVID-19.
Yes. This is one of those things where how the board can help us in certain situations. Currently, for example, when I spoke to you earlier about the Aletha asked about the internet access and what the state's doing and all of that, and there's matching funds. And so we anticipate throughout the year that there will be things that come up that we didn't anticipate, that wasn't funded in our general budget in order to take care of COVID-19 items. In fact, we received no additional funding for COVID-19, so nothing that we budgeted was specifically for COVID-19. It was just to run the regular school year. Obviously, there will be some things that will come up that we may need to purchase in order to ensure that students are receiving a quality education. The board to authorize the superintendent on an as-needed basis. It would not be a full transfer of funds. And from the fund balance, which still keeps our fund balance well that's required by law and well above that which is healthy. And it is simply to have, if we ultimately do find. There's one example that we ran into, Shannon. It was the one here recently. What was it? The
webcams was one.
Webcams. Instead of having our teachers utilize the camera on their computers, which when having a whole class and trying to teach, we were looking at a much better option would be to have webcams. Obviously, that wasn't funded in the budget, but that would be something that improve the quality of instruction for the kids who are at home. And again, in the school year, and so as things come up, I would really just asking the board for a over 150,000 that those things happen and we wouldn't have to call the board back together before we could take action to do what was needed. In the scheme of things, in our budget and in our fund balance, $150,000 is a lot of money, but when you think of serving for over about 5,500 students, it's not going to be any major purchases that we're making, and that's simply because it's not that much money that would the board would be in a position where they're just handing over the purse.
Now, if it's over 50,000, it's going to have to come back to us, which doesn't sound like any single item. Sounds like you think would fall under that category. But what can you still keep us apprised if that money is tapped, like even just in our weekly, just like a bit?
Yes, if this funding is ever used, I would immediately let you know that we have a need to use it. One example that I'm pretty sure if we end up having school the whole year, we're requiring people to trip the building, getting the bus. At some point, we're going to have to buy a whole lot more hand sanitizer. We just don't have enough. Things such as that. Just unfortunately, these are things that the federal government did fund through the CARES Act, but as I've told you guys multiple times, that the state did not give us those funds. So thank God we're in a position as a district where we have a healthy fund balance and we can possibly, with your approval, take advantage of those things. But have somewhat of a cushion so that we can run the district and when things come up, able to address them.
I would suspect that we will probably spend more on substitute teachers this year, because this money also comes from there to help cushion that line item.
We're hoping for the subs, and again, this is all speculation. No one really knows how this is going to work. If a teacher is asymptomatic and quarantined, they can still teach from home. So we don't anticipate having to need a sub for that teacher, unlike in regular school years. We also have found that it's going to be difficult to find subs anyway that are willing to come in, just due to the health pandemic. So we don't anticipate needing this amount for subs at this point in the year.
Other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to address this item. Let's see. The motion would be to authorize the superintendent to use no more than $150,000 from the GISD fund balance for unanticipated and unbudgeted items needed for school operations during the 2021 school year due to the COVID pandemic. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Ann. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Trina. Any other discussion?
I would just like to have added in there that we would be giving the details when they do need to use that money.
Okay. So we can. Is the motion and the second comfortable with amending that motion to say, we will say, with the stipulation that the board is advised when such funds would be expended. You good with that? Ann, you okay with that?
I'm okay with that. You got
Trina?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. That passes unanimously with the stipulated change. Okay, next item. Oh my goodness. Okay, item E, selection of TASB convention delegates. That ought to be a party this year.
Yeah. October 3rd is the TASB delegation, and each school board can nominate an alternate to represent GISD on the TASB delegation assembly. So the administration recommends that you select one of you as a delegate and the other as the alternate.
Okay. Who's interested in such an opportunity?
Who hasn't done it yet?
I think it's Lisa's turn.
Me and Tish did it last time.
Miss Roger did it last year.
Lisa's not here.
Oh, come on. It's really kind of cool.
It's fun, Lisa. It's fun.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's interesting. You definitely should do it once.
Okay.
And this year it may be online anyway, so.
What is the
Yeah.
time?
It's not much. I mean, there's a little bit of preparation reading before you get there, but you know, it's basically attending a 3 or 4 hour meeting. Is that fair? It's been a long time since I did. Oh, she's frozen, or she's pretending. Give her a second.
I think this is the perfect time to nominate her.
Okay. Are you okay with that, Elise?
Yeah.
I can hear you, and I can see everything and hear everything you say. You just can't hear me, and I'm just trying.
Okay.
Don't be voting for me, Ann, unless I'm.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm fine with it.
All right. What about our alternate? Anybody stepping up?
Mike, you're awfully quiet over there.
I'm trying to be.
Don't make me appoint somebody.
When is it?
Nominate Mike.
When is the convention?
The
October
3rd October. It's a Saturday. And all that.
I imagine that's like everything else. We don't know whether there really is going to be a convention.
Well, I'm almost certain it won't be in person. It'll be virtual. So it'll be easier than going wherever it is it's supposed to be this year.
Well, then it's a perfect year for me to volunteer.
If nobody volunteers to be the alternate, I don't think we have to have an alternate.
I'll do it.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Well, then, will somebody make a motion to nominate these brave souls?
I so move.
Let's see. It says so the motion would be, I will move that the Board of Trustees select Aletha Cruz as the official voting delegate and Roger Livingston as the alternate to the 2020 TASB Delegate Assembly it's in Dallas. See, wasn't even going to be that far. On Saturday, October 3rd, 2020, as provided by the TASB bylaws. Good with that, Mr. Rackley?
So moved.
Okay, Mr. Rackley moved, so we're going to have Tish be the second.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? And if you were nominated, you can't oppose. All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you, people. All right. Moving to discussion items, future action items. A, consider approval of TASB Board of Directors.
Yes, this, as you guys, also there's representation for Region 10, Position D. There are 4 candidates. All of their information was placed in your board book for consideration. And so next month we will ask for you to choose one of those 4.
Region 10, Position D.
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody know any of these folks? I don't think I do. Just take a look at that list, and if you have any info, let us know. Otherwise, we'll deal with that next month. Then item B is consider approval of the Texas Teacher Evaluation and Support T-Test list.
For this one, I will try, and if I can't get through it, I'll have Sharon come on. But each year, Greenville ISD is required to identify an alternative administrators that's certified to do evaluations to teachers make their first evaluation. Historically, what we've done in Greenville ISD is simply name all of the principals. So should a teacher on a particular campus disagree and want another evaluation, we can choose of any other principal in the district to do that evaluation. The way it works is the 2 evaluations are combined at that point for a final score. This is something that the board does every single year, and the list is just a group of all of our campus principals.
Any questions about that?
I had never heard of it before, so I was looking it up. And I was curious, how do you set the observation rubric?
Well, the rubric's provided to us. T-Test is a statewide teacher evaluation system. And so it's, teachers are trained on it, principals are trained on it, everyone's on the same page of what's expected. This year it will obviously, last year they waived it because when we left school in March, many teachers had not completed all the requirements. This year, my understanding is they are taking into consideration distance learning and possibly will make some amendments to it. But we anticipate it's actually being the case. We'll actually go through with it and complete it this school year.
Other questions? Okay, we will deal with that also next month. That brings us to the consent agenda. We have items A through H that I trust we have all reviewed. Does anybody need an item taken out for further discussion? No? Alrighty. Then I will entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Roger. Is there a second?
Second.
Aletha? Any other questions? All right. All in favor of accepting the consent agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. All right. That passes unanimously. Okay. We now have open forum and public comment for non-agenda items. Do we have any input from the public?
No, we do not.
No, we do not. Do we need closed session?
Not unless the board needs it.
Does the board need it? I do not need it. We do not need it. All right. Moving on. We have no action on closed session items because we had no closed session items.
No, we had the, that was attached, the hiring.
Oh, we need to approve it, but we didn't have to go into closed session. Gotcha. So we need a motion to consider approval of professional new hires as recommended.
I make a motion.
I second.
Motion from Tish, second from Roger. Any other, I guess we don't have any discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Item 2, consider ratification of employment contracts as recommended. Do you have a motion for that?
So moved.
Thank you, Roger. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Trina. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, also passes unanimously. Okay. Future agenda information items. We were excellent at taking care of the board secretary report before John's departure. Do we have anything to add to the board's, to our list, the list of stuff we need answers to?
Nothing new that came tonight.
Yeah, I don't remember anything.
No.
Okay. And of course, we do that during the meetings, but any items you have like that, pass along when they occur to you. Future meetings and workshops, I think we have our list for that.
Yes, I have resolution for STAR test.
Yeah, oh, that's right, yes.
And I have for a future meeting the GISD school board, the GISD academic calendar.
That's how it will change.
Yes. I would like to ask the board, is there a preference as to when I bring that to you for a vote? I would like to do it sooner than later, so we can let our parents know. As soon as Thursday at 5:30, being the only agenda item, if everyone's available and okay with that meeting time.
I guess the only hesitation I have is there anything that would make a change again? Probably yes. I guess we're just going to have to call it fluid.
Nobody has a crystal ball for this year.
No kidding. I'm fine with Thursday at 5:30. Is everybody available?
I might be on a beach somewhere, but I will tune in.
All right.
Wow.
It shouldn't take, it'll be very similar to the last meeting we had, and I'm a bit jealous.
I'll show you the beach. You can live vicariously.
All righty, good.
All right, Thursday, 5:30, with that being the only agenda item. So I have your word on that, Dr. Ligon.
Yes. They have one Friday with another one, but yes.
Okay. Might not hold you. Okay, so Thursday, 5:30. All right. Do anything else we need to consider? Excellent. Thank you all for your participation, and I will call this meeting to a close at 7:46. Thank you.
Thank you all so much.